Sabrina 70s comic, issue 59. Sabrina and Zelda are freezing indoors. What, did the heat go out? Hilda then asks if they've all forgotten that they're witches and teleports them to sunny Hawaii, complete with bathing suits. So what took her so long? I guess because this requires the most imagination. Good thing Hilda was smart enough to change her mind about not being run out of her house just because it's cold. I figured there'd be a catch because this was too nice to them. Why does Zilla have to bitch at them for this? Bullshit! She doesn't want them to goof off in sunny weather. She just immediately assumes that they're gonna goof off. Why doesn't she bug Sabrina for going to the beach and relaxing every time she does it then? And somehow, Della has to be told that, obviously, they could perform mischief in Hawaii too. She doubts her, somehow. She doesn't doubt that you can perform mischief at a carnival. And Sabrina has to tell her that mischief is more effective when it isn't expected. Delle's humble enough to admit she's right, but tells them they'd better be right, or they'd have to go back to the freezing cold. Did her boyfriend break up with her? Is that what happened to her? Refreshingly, Sabrina's excited and happy about her idea for their first act of mischief. You'd think it'd be Hilda saying this. That's out of character. She tries to turn oil into juice, and she somehow got the spell wrong. And instead of ruining someone's tanning lotion, she turned her aunt's pineapple juice into suntan oil. If that oil was toxic to drink, they'd have to go to the doctor. So I guess this is going to be a story where they just fail over and over. Also, Sabrina said demons of Zeus in her spell, though it's confusing to mix religions there with the word demons. And Zelda references spirits in her spell. What's in it for the spirit friends? Zelda casts a spell saying it's time to make the island shake and quake. And somehow this results in their heads all being hit with coconuts. And that's it. It's hard to believe they'd have this much trouble causing mischief. Sabrina's better at it than this. Harvey brings out the worst in her. So if only she had him here. Hilda casts a spell to make a surfer fall over, and part of the wave he was riding on hits her and her family. But it still bothers the surfer. Later, though we don't know how much later, Hilda tells Sabrina to answer the phone, and Sabrina assumes it's Della checking up on them. The story ends with Della being sad that they performed the mischief on themselves. What right did Della have to interrupt their vacation? Enchantra didn't do this. I never imagined witches to be not allowed to go on vacation. Ooh, here's an interesting story. We start out seeing some purple aliens wanting to make contact with the Earthlings, magically knowing English and speaking it casually to each other. Maybe a spell by a whole bunch of witches forced English to be the only language everywhere. That explained why the aliens we saw earlier in the comic spoke English. The aliens impressed me right away because they want to be very careful in their contacts with the Earthlings because their superior civilization would be too much of a shock for them. As if their looks would be fine? I guess they just don't want to make things even worse. But how are they supposed to develop trade and diplomatic relations if they can't discuss their civilization very much? I'm guessing the comic will be too scared to even reference this again, let alone change the status quo in even a minor way, so this won't lead to their planet being an ally of Earth's or anything, and they'll never be referenced again. They think that they should try making contact with just one family first. By coincidence, they go to Sabrina's house. I love this story. Sabrina casually says hi and asks them to come on in. The alien from Azusa says that they don't seem surprised to see them. And Sabrina says casually that they're always getting visitors from different spirit worlds. Spirit worlds? Why would she assume they're from a spirit world in particular? I guess she assumes they're from the other realm. Is the other realm which world a spirit world? I guess it's like the Avatar spirit world. And spirits are just the wildlife over there. The alien isn't surprised at all at Sabrina's response, somehow. Well, he is very new to this planet. He instead levitates and thinks her friends couldn't do this. So his people have never met witches before. Hilda reveals that she could levitate since she was a child. Then she casts a spell to do something that would obviously scare them. The worst kind of spell she could think of. By detaching her head and asking if either of them could do the split personality bit. Of all the spells she could do, why this one? And how is she still alive? Astral projection? Maybe she's just making them hallucinate this. Maybe there's a second brain in her body, and it's in the magic battery. Maybe she just assumes these aliens are witches as well, because they can levitate. The aliens are shocked, and one of them says that this strange atmosphere must be playing tricks with their vision. The alien says that he doesn't want to frighten the Earthlings, and then says that their civilization is infinitely superior to theirs. He's not a very good ambassador. As I wish I knew the aliens' names, he says that his people have created an elixir that can cure old age, broken bones, and dandruff. Did they experiment on humans for months to find that out? That has to be it. That's a brilliant elixir. It could be the perfect way to make sure that alien and human relations get off on the right foot. Just give them the elixir for free, or at least offer it, and they can very easily give something else in return. Hilda asks for the elixir, and says that by coincidence, she and Zelda whip up a big batch of the same stuff every day. Exact same stuff? Zelda's seen using a cauldron to make it. Did these aliens somehow make the elixir without knowing about magic? Did they just have a guy with weird experimental cooking taste who cooked the potion with bat wings and stuff on a whim? If they didn't even have the idea of witchcraft in their culture, why would anyone get the idea to combine these potion ingredients together? Maybe they are witch aliens. They're just very shocked at seeing human witches. The Azusians are again said to be superior to them. Why is he emphasizing this? Why go with this angle? Just say what you want to say right away. And it's not like he's treating them as inferior. He says that his finger can absorb all the liquid in a glass. Hilda asks, why didn't you critters tell me you were thirsty? Well, it does make sense that she'd assume that's how he took away the liquid. Because she sends ice cream soda at their mouths from her fingers, they run away from the planet in fear. Won't their planet assume Earth should be destroyed quickly after this because it'd be seen as a threat? Hilda and Sabrina fly after them on brooms, still smiling somehow after they screwed up. They should be apologizing and explaining that witches are a minority here. Instead, Hilda wanted to be hospitable and see them off, just for the sake of it. Hilda? She has a soft side. I guess they're hoping that they're scaring away any potential alien invaders this way, permanently. It should be explained that that's the case. The story ends with the Azurians warning their Azurian spacecraft that Earth's culture is superior and would be a great shock. I have to wonder why Sabrina's family didn't immediately explain to them that they're aliens to Earth too, to relate to them, and therefore aren't good Earthling representatives. They're talking to aliens. I'm pretty sure they could say they're witches at that point. Maybe the aliens got made to forget this too, because it's the magical event. But if they did, they come back to Earth immediately, not remembering Sabrina. So the status quo would change. To be fair, witches would protect Earth from the aliens. They wouldn't want their playpen where they can be big fish in a little pond to be destroyed. We should have seen a sequel to this story then, where the Witches' Council zaps away their invading alien spaceships. That only required one panel. In the next story, right after Harvey and Sabrina are kissing at Sabrina's door, being better to each other than they ever were, he cheerfully says she's bewitching, and she screams and slams the door. Why would she do that instead of just asking why, as far as she thinks, he knows she's a witch, so that she could simply erase his memory of that and protect herself? Even if she couldn't do that, she's a witch. She could undo any consequence of Harvey knowing she's a witch. It's forced that he even said bewitching. Who says that? Harvey wonders if she didn't like his kiss, or he has bad breath. Meanwhile, Sabrina freaks out to Hilda, who says Harvey's an idiot, and Ambrose tells her what bewitching actually means. Sabrina says that she was wondering if Harvey was maybe a warlock too. If witches can erase people's memories, then she might have good reason to assume that could be the case, because she wouldn't remember any time that he used magic. It's lucky for her that Harvey's still sitting there on the steps. She feels sorry about what she did, says sorry, and says she loves the kiss and him. She jumps into his arms and kisses him. That's a surprisingly sweet moment, and because this is a comedy series, I'm immediately waiting for something to go wrong. Oh, good. Their idea of a joke wasn't mean. Instead, the story ends with Sabrina dazed because she's so in love, and Ambrose says jokingly that Harvey did cast a spell on her. Harvey and Sabrina moments are so rare that I was waiting for the catch. If anything, this comic does nothing but give us a message that they should move on from each other, being more against their ship than for it, because he's cheated on her before. I don't think I'm holding it against him. I just keep mentioning it because it's relevant to the conversation. He's still got a whole bunch of personality traits to him. I think he's a deep enough character for me to look forward to seeing him anyways. In the next story, Reggie gets tripped, and Archie reveals to Betty that every time Reggie badmouths Harvey, Reggie has an accident. So Betty decides to ask Reggie about this. What took them so long to question this? From an outsider's perspective, it does make sense that they would assume it was Harvey who was the jinx, and maybe even the witch, because he was the one insulted, and there's only 2 people there. And this is the 70s, so they would be less likely to suspect the girl, Sabrina. Why does Reggie, that is logical and grounded of him, but still, I thought he was an idiot because he's a jerk to everyone he sees, so I'm surprised that he doesn't believe Betty. Well, of course he hasn't learned his lesson if he still insults Harvey. Usually Reggie is the one who suspects Sabrina being a witch, even in the 70s cartoon. No wonder I was surprised by this, it's kind of out of character. Because Reggie makes fun of Sabrina for dating Harvey, he gets into the floor. I love this story. It makes sense that these characters would have to deal with this from Sabrina. I love seeing an outsider's perspective on her and Harvey. Archie's convinced to make fun of Harvey's clothing. I wish he explained himself. It could have been explained that it's because his shirt is purple and he has a rainbow on it. Maybe they just want to see what'll happen. Harvey thinks that Reggie might be a bad influence on Archie because he's not normally this rotten. He's probably right. Does that explain it? Sabrina makes Archie fall over with the wave of her hand. I love the variety in how many ways witches can cast a spell outside the show. It makes sense the magic would be smart enough to know that its user wants it to be used. Jughead then laughs at the guys for believing that any time someone insults Harvey, they'd have an accident, even though he should have noticed himself a long time ago. If it happens every time, what took so long for them to comment on it? I guess their memories keep being wiped every time a scene like this happens, so they keep repeating it. Jughead gives Harvey the same insult and trips, and Reggie says that that's the exact same flip Archie took, because Harvey and Sabrina stopped being beside each other and split up. The story ends with Sabrina's well-meaning friends warning her that Harvey's a witch, and Jughead says she's got to give him up. It's a good thing for Harvey they were smart and not spiteful enough to not rush at him an angry mob and beat him up. Instead, they cared about Sabrina's well-being. But wouldn't everyone have noticed by now that every time someone insults Sabrina, something bad happened to them right afterwards? I guess it helped that she hangs around with Harvey so much then. Why is Sabrina screaming at this? Is she just that instinctively scared of a mortal mentioning witches? She can just erase her memories. She knows Harvey's not a witch, or she'd see him abusing his power when he doesn't think she's seeing. And Della didn't say Harvey's a witch already when she told Della to give him powers. The first story is about Sabrina's family hating how cold it is in the winter and warping to Hawaii for a vacation. And then Della insists on interrupting them. I never imagined that witches wouldn't be allowed to take vacations. And when they're told to do mischief, they only manage to do mischief on themselves. I understand an earthquake causing coconuts to fall on them, even though realistically, a coconut falling on someone's head would kill them. Sabrina and Hilda are much better at causing mischief than that. I liked how interesting the second story was. Some aliens, who aren't invaders and instead just want to get to know Earthlings, happen to meet up with Sabrina's family, and get scared away because they're witches. Why didn't Sabrina's family just say they were witches right from the start? I'd imagine their first response to aliens to be, we're aliens too, technically. They'd also tell the aliens about what their culture is like, and that'd scare the aliens away. After a story where Sabrina angsts about Harvey saying bewitched in front of her, and has to be calmed down, which at least has a happy ending with no twist, but the story was pointless seeming. The final story is about Sabrina's friends finally realizing that bad things always happen to anyone who insults Harvey, and being realistically scared. But they assume it's Harvey who's the problem, because he's always surrounding Sabrina when they see him. Wouldn't Harvey take at least one different class from Sabrina and be insulted just fine there? So once people realize it's Sabrina, especially since if they can figure out this after eons, they should know or hear the rumors that anytime someone's mean to Sabrina, they get bad luck. Realistically, Sabrina would be unpopular, but because of this. Because people would see her as a jinx and be scared of her. She quickly learned that she can't get away with abusing her magic every single time, but I guess she sees it as worth it. After all, it would be cathartic. And any time someone would mistreat her for being a jinx, she'd do the same thing to them. Sabrina must have erased their memories of this whole scene and their suspicion of Harvey every time, or else they'd keeping afraid of him past the story. Sabrina's known Harvey since they were kids. They wouldn't take this long to get suspicious.